Hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a drop spindle, I dabble in weaving from time to time, and anything else that takes some crafty fancy. Now this week we are talking about zips. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and to any new viewers a very warm welcome to you. As I mentioned at the start of this video, today we're talking about zips, and specifically we are talking about what to do when your zip breaks and you can't fix it. Now I have two projects here that have been sitting in my mending basket for ages because the zips are broken and I can't fix them, so I need to replace them. So first up we have they are both very creased because they've been sitting in my mending basket for at least a year. In the case of the next project, several years. So first up we have one of my Sew My Style projects from last year or the year before. This is the Barclays Skirt, which I made in an IKEA fabric, so it's a good solid heavyweight upholstery fabric. So yeah, so a skirt that I've never actually been able to wear out the house because as soon as I made it, with its invisible zipper, which was quite a cheap zipper. So although we can do the zip up, we've got this hole in the zip. This is the zip done up. So this is the problem with cheap zips. You go, oh, that's inexpensive, I'll get that one. Or you're choosing between two or three. No, similar prices. In the case of this one, I saw a bundle and I was like, oh, that looks like good value for money. Yeah, they're not, they don't work. Buy your zips from a good, reputable, proper retailer, not from places where you can get stuff for cheap. And I can't even undo this one properly now. So yeah, so that zip needs replacing because I cannot fix this. I don't have the skills, and quite frankly, I don't think it's worth the effort for this cheap zip. So yeah, that's going to be replaced. And the other project, I have worn these a lot, and I have been missing them whilst they've been sat stewing for years in the bottom of my mending basket. These are the Thurlow Trousers, which I think is True Bias pattern, not sure. I made these around about the same time as I started the channel, and I wore them almost daily to work when I was working in a classroom. I don't know if they still fit me because yeah, I haven't been able to wear them for years. But one of the good things about this pattern is it's got this really wide seam allowance at the back waist seam. So if they are too small, I at least have a chance to possibly widen them a bit. Hopefully enough, we'll see. But again, I was working to a budget when I was buying my zip, and I thought, oh, there's a zip on a roll. That looks like a good idea because you can just cut it to the length you want. No need to sort of worry about trying to find the right length zip for your project. The trouble is, you then don't have proper stoppers on the ends of your zips, and if you don't get it right when you sew it in, and I didn't, your zipper comes off, and I have no idea where the replacement zippers are. They're the pull bits. Obviously the zip on a roll came with a load of spares. No idea where they've gone. Obviously we've moved since this broke. But yeah. And these ones, again, the zip's going to have to come out and get replaced. But they're fly fronted. So that's a bit more complicated than the invisible zip on the skirt. So again, they need replacing. So we're going to have a go at that this week. Obviously the first step is going to be to remove the broken zips. So that's fun. Don't you just love unpicking when you've actually managed to match your threads to your fabric? But still, once the zips have been changed, I should have two items of clothing that I can actually wear. Obviously the Thurlow Trousers may need a bit of an adjustment because I am a little bit larger now than when I made them. Hopefully not so much larger that the extension in the seam allowance won't cope. but I don't know because I can't try them on at the moment because the zip's broken. So yeah, so stage one is fix the zips, and then find out if they fit still. Okay, so here we have both garments with their replacement zips ready. So I've got a brown one that is longer than the 1/4 in the pattern for the trousers, which is fine because we can trim it down once it's all stitched in at the bottom. The bit that broke on the trousers was the pull. It came right the way off the top, and as you can see on the commercial zip, well, the normal standard zip, it's got these little stoppers at the end that stop it coming off. We didn't have that on the zip on a roll, so the puller just came off, and yeah, a bit of a pain. So that's the zip that's going to go in the trousers, and if I move those over the side, we have for these, I mean it's a different shade of blue because that's what I could get, but it's an invisible zipper anyway, so essentially, as you can see from where I hold this one together, you get a little bit of a line with the way I've sewn it in on this one because hey, invisible zippers are not all that easy to sew in all the time. But mostly what's going to be seen is the pull, which is fine because it's still blue, and I quite often wear things untucked anyway, so that'll be covered up when it's sitting here at the top of the waistband. So that's pretty much what you're going to see. There might be a slight line of blue, but like I say, I'm not overly concerned about that. It's behind me. People are looking at that and noticing it, they're looking too close. So, first step for both of these is to take the zip out first. And they are fitted in different ways. They're different types of zips, so there's that for a start. So if we look at the skirt, I actually can't open the zip all the way up or have it, it's quite a pain. With the way that it's broken, it's just not doing anything really. But if we look on the inside, we can see that it's been stitched close to the fold of the fabric, and if I'd stitched it slightly further in towards where I've overcast, it'd be even less visible from the outside. So I've sewn it slightly too far out because really you want the teeth to level up with the folded edge there when you put it in when it's a perfect fit, but we don't always get perfect. As you can see, it's going up to the top of the waistband, so there's no need for hooks at the top at all, and it's folded inside where the waistband has come down. So that all needs to be unpicked. So I need to unpick where this bit is folded down over the top of the zip. So I'm probably going to have to unstitch some of this stitching here to get in there to get that out, and all the way down the length of the zip on both sides. And we're just going to replace it with this zip, trying to get it as invisible as possible. We'll see how we go. If this was a closer match to the fabric, I would be even less concerned, but it is quite bright compared to the main colour of the fabric. So yeah, we'll see how we go with that one. Probably going to be using a grey thread for both. I don't know what's going on outside. Okay, so I do have blue threads actually, so navy blue would work for this, and a black or a grey or a brown would work for the trousers. We'll see what threads I get to when I get there. So yeah, so that's the invisible zip. I'm going to do that one first because that's relatively straightforward once I've unpicked it all. And then if we have a look at the trousers, so these are actually fly fronted trousers, they're the Thurlow pants. So they do have a button and a hook at the top, what's hook and bar at the top, and the zip starts lower down. See, this is the problem, there's no stopper on the top of the zip there because it was a zip on a roll thing. I didn't get that stitched down well enough when I put these together, but this is several years ago now, so I mean I have developed my skills since then. But as you can see, it's a fly front, so the zip is actually attached to the front here, and then we've got this guard portion behind as well, so that needs to come out all the way up to the waistband, and the zip needs to come out on the other side. I'll be able to leave the facing there, I think, because, oh shit, that's on the outside. So yes, I'm going to have to consider whether or not whether I want to have a line of stitching. If I can match the thread well, I won't worry too much about a line of stitching there, but it would be neater if I can actually unpick this lining here as well, which means I need to redo the top stitching around the side. So this is a bit more complicated. So yeah, so I'm going to start unpicking. So yeah, it's quite simple on the skirt, straight unpick, but a little bit more complex on the trousers. So I'm going to move the trousers out of the way. Let's get started on the skirt. We'll come back to the trousers in a bit. My seam ripper, and I'm just going to start working on all these stitching. I think you all are probably quite used to how to use a seam ripper. If you're an absolute beginner, this is an essential tool to have in your sewing kit. This one is a Prim ergonomic seam ripper. I think it's Prim. I've had it for years and it's great. It fits in my hand nicely. You can get all sorts of different brands. They all have this longer sort of blade type looking prong and one with a little bobble on the end. The bobble is supposedly to help you stop ripping into the fabric where you're not supposed to. And you essentially find the stitch underneath. I'm going to put the bobble side underneath the stitch line because I don't want to cut into the fabric, and just gently work at the stitch only to lift that up. I'm not going to unpick all the way along the waistband, that would be ridiculous, but I'm just going to unpick enough that I can get into the zip, and then the same down the sides. So I'm going to come off camera and do that. Okay, so I've got the zip off. As you can see, there is some marking where the stitching was previous. I mean, that's largely because of the type of fabric this is. So what I'm going to do is when I apply the new zip, I'm just going to roll it over a millimetre or two just to hide that damaged fold, just so that it looks a bit neater on the back. So yeah, so that's all ready to sew the new zip in. So let's get to the trousers. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are fly-fronted trousers, which makes them a little bit more awkward to get the zip out. The first thing we need to do is undo this top stitching, which is fine because it's a bit wobbly here. Might be able to do a better job next time around, we'll see. As I say, I made these quite a while ago. And that's going to release this flap by unpicking the top stitching down here and across the bottom. I'm going to see then if I need to unpick along the waistband at all. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping I'll be able to get to the zip just by taking off the top stitching. When I take off the top stitching, that's also going to release the bottom of this fly guard here. So that's going to need to be unpicked here up to the waistband, but again, I'm not going to need to unpick the waistband here. That can stay attached. But it's the front of the trousers that the zip is attached to, so I need to be able to get into that. And yeah, they're stitched through the front seam allowance and the fly guard, so the zip's sandwiched between the two. So yeah, so I've got quite a bit of unpicking to do here, and yep, again I've done tiny stitches and matching thread, so it makes it a little bit tricky to find the stitches, but let's give it a go. Okay, so we've got the zip out of these as well. I have managed to get the zip out without unpicking the waistband here. It's going to be a bit fiddly to get the new one in, but it's fine. And yeah, I have obviously managed to nick the fabric there, so I'm going to put a little patch underneath of interfacing or something just to reinforce that area. It is underneath. When you zip up, that's the underneath layer and that's the on top, so it won't be visible, but I also want to make sure that it's not going to give way and the threads aren't going to get caught in the zip. So now all we've got left to do is to put the zips in. So sewing machine's coming out. Okay, so I've repressed the seam allowance where I'm going to be sewing the invisible zip on, so that where the previous stitching was is now underneath and out of the way. That'll just give a neater edge along the fold next to where the zipper teeth are going to be, and hopefully covering the zipper teeth if I get it sewed in the right place, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So let's see if I can sort out an angle for you to be able to see what I'm doing, and we'll get that sewn in. Essentially I'm aiming to have the teeth running along the crease on both sides, And yeah, sewing it up into the waistband. Then I'll need to fold the waistband over to cover the end like it was before. So yeah, so that's the plan for the skirt. A bit of origami needed on the waistband, I think. There we go, that's how it's going to look once it's all sewn back in place. Okay, so I've got a plastic zipper foot on at the moment. I normally use a metal one, but when I tidied things away over Christmas, I tidied that away and I haven't unpacked what I tidied it into yet. So I have the plastic zipper foot there. This one's more square across the front than the metal one. The metal one's got sort of angled sides, so like a little bit of a nose on it. And a normal zipper foot, so a non-invisible zipper foot, looks like this. It's got a little kind of sleigh at the front. So they do work a little bit differently. The normal zipper foot is not trying to get too close to the teeth because you don't mind them being on display. So you use that for exposed zippers. And the invisible zipper foot, if I just grab that off here for a minute. So it's a bit more kind of square in the plastic one, as I say. So a bit more of a pointy shape to the front, like a blunt nose on the metal one. But there are channels underneath. So the teeth of your invisible zip run through one of the channels, allowing the needle to go quite close to the teeth when you are sewing it. A lot of instructions for invisible zips will tell you to press the teeth of the zip away from the tape before you sew it in. I sometimes do, sometimes don't. I personally don't find it makes a huge amount of difference because the zipper foot, the invisible zipper foot, is holding the teeth out of the way anyway. So I don't find it makes that much difference one way or the other, but some people find it easier to just run an iron along the tape, but use the other hand so you can see what I'm showing you. So you run an iron along the tape and it rolls out the teeth slightly that way. Obviously be aware that we are working with nylon, so it's not a man-made fibre, so bear that in mind when you're setting the temperature on your iron if you are going to press your tapes. Now I have lined mine up so that the teeth are running just on the seam allowance side of the fold, so hopefully they will stay there as I stitch them. I've also got my tape at the top end poking slightly over the top of the waistband. I can tuck that away or cut it off once I've finished sewing it on. The stopper is here on the zip, so that's inside the waistband. So I'm going to up to the top of the stopper to attach my zip. That way the zip will be able to zip all the way up to the top of the waistband rather than having some empty space. So I mean, I could shape this down, fold it down, zip, and stitch it underneath and what have you, but I'll probably just trim it off, to be fair. Or I'll roll it over the seam allowance of the waistband when I wrap it around, but that will leave a little bit of a bump on the top. I'll do one or the other. Okay, so I'm going to be working on this side first. So my zipper teeth need to go to the right hand side of the needle. And I'm just going to sit that invisible zipper foot so that the groove is going over the teeth. And that's just going to keep them out of the way of the needle. Lower my needle down. I'm just going to remove that first pin. Obviously I'll remove the other pins as I go because we don't want to be sewing over your pins. So I will, as I progress down, just roll the teeth slightly to the side as I'm stitching. I'll just move that hand out of the way. Just roll the teeth to the side as I'm stitching to allow the needle access to the tape all the way down. So I'll just be running my finger down as I go, making sure that things are feeding through correctly. And this is where I find I sometimes end up with the zip shifting a little bit and coming the other side of the crease, but I'm not overly concerned about that, to be fair. So I'll do that on this side, and then when I come back to do the other side, I'll close the zip up to make sure that the zip is evenly in place on one side and the other and everything closes up nice and evenly. Pin the other side in place, unzip it again, and run the teeth through the other side of the invisible zipper foot. So I'm going to get on with that. And yeah, I'll be obviously doing back tacking top and bottom. But yeah, zips are fairly simple once you know what you're doing. Bit daunting sometimes, but fairly simple. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I've not quite gone all the way down the length of the zip. I've left a little bit free. That's because obviously the pull gets in the way and it will break your needle if you can even manage to get it underneath your foot. So don't zip all the way down. When I unpicked the zip, I unpicked a little bit of the side of the back seam as well. So once everything is in place, I will re-stitch up that little bit of the seam part of the way. Doesn't need to be all the way, but just enough so that you're not flashing your underwear. Okay, so we'll take that off. And we're all stitched on. As you can see, the stitch line is running along the side of the zips. That's the tail of the thread. So it's running alongside the side of the teeth, and it's left the teeth nice and free and clear. So if we keep our tails out of the way, when we pull the zip, it does up nicely, and the crease sits along where the two sides of the zip join. So I'm going to do the same for the other side, and I'll come back and show you once it's all stitched in. Okay, so I've got the zip sewn in now, and it's mostly invisible. There's a few little bits that are popping through. I also sewed together that little bit of the back seam. So all I've got left to do now is trim off the tops of the tape and tidy up the waistband. So that's not going to take too much effort to do. Yeah, so let's get on with it. Okay, so back with the trousers. I have, where I nicked the fabric here, just reinforced that with a bit of interfacing on the underside. It's still going to look a little bit messy on the outside. I will at some point hand stitch over that to just neaten it up a bit. But I can do that once the zip is in. It's going to be covered anyway by the fly setup. But yeah, be careful with your seam rippers, guys. Could be worse. It could be in the middle of the fabric. Okay, so let's adjust that angle and get to putting the zip in the trousers. Okay, so we now have the standard zipper foot in place, and I've got my top thread as brown. I've left the grey bobbin thread in because I'm not too fussed about my bobbin and top thread not matching for this job. And we're moving on to putting the zip in the trousers. Now this is going to be a bit more fiddly of a job. So we need to put one side down between the seam allowance of the trousers and the seam allowance of the fly guard. And this side is going to be a bit fiddly as well. So we need to get the zip on the lining fabric. And if you remember, I haven't unpicked the waistband on the side here. So a little bit more fiddly. The zip is longer than it needs to be. So once it's all stitched in place, I'll be doing some back tacking across the actual teeth of the zip and trimming that off. But yeah, let's get going. Okay, so I've used the previous stitch line, so I could just about make out where that was on the lining, to pin the zip in place, and I've got my zipper foot so that the needle is on the left hand side because my teeth are on the left hand side, so you want to make sure that everything's the same way round. So I'm just going to fiddle and fudge to get this under the foot without catching the trouser fabric. This is where I wish I had actually unpicked the waistband, but never mind. Okay, so needle down. As you can see, it's not as close. So if I move a hand up there, you might be able to see. The needle is not as close to the teeth as it was on the invisible zip. It doesn't need to be. Okay, so I'll take that pin out, and again we'll get sewing, and I'll speed up that footage for you because you don't really want to hear my machine. Just make sure everything is out of the way. Again, back tacking at the top and bottom. Okay, so I've stitched down to just beyond where the top stitching was previously. So just beyond where the lining comes away from the trouser fabric. Because I don't actually need to go any further. A lot of this is going to get cut off anyway, beyond this point. So the next thing I need to do, I think I need to probably attach the zip to the other side before I do the top stitching, the fly front top stitching. Yeah, that's the 2 steps next, so bear with me and I'll get to do some pinning. Okay, so I've got the zip sandwiched between the fly guard and the seam allowance of the front of the trousers, and I've got the zip open to beyond where I'm going to be sewing. There'll be enough of a gap left here to get the zip up before I do the top stitching down for the fly front. But yeah, this is just going to make it a bit easier because I'm going to be able to sew the full length of where I need to sew. So yeah, making sure that your needles are facing, your pins are facing the needle on the machine. We're going to slip underneath. The teeth are still on the left of the machine, so we've still got the zipper foot the same way round. Drop the foot. Drop the needle, take that first pin out way. And again, we're going to back tack at the beginning and end. And speed up the footage so you're not deafened by a sewing machine. Okay, so that's my zip now in place and done up. So as you can see, the bit where we had the hole from the seam ripper is actually not very visible. I will, as I say, do a bit of hand stitching over that just to reinforce it at a later date. I've tucked the tape on that side out of the way. I haven't worried about it on this side because it's going to be hidden anyway. I might trim it off at some point. We'll see. So now, with the zip open, I'm going to be top stitching the fly detail on and then trimming off the edge of the bottom of the zip once I've reinforced that. So yeah, time to get that done. No, I'll do that off camera. Okay, so that's actually a much neater job of top stitching down here than I'd done previously. I've only gone up as far as like the edge of the zip because, yeah. But it's much neater, much smoother curve. I've used a slightly longer stitch length as well, so that's a tip for you for top stitching. So my next step is inside. I'm going to attach the bottom of the fly guard, so that's this bit of needle cord here, through the zip to the lining. So I'm going to do the zip up a bit and stitch across there a few times back and forth, so that'll reinforce the bottom of the zip, but it will also hold the fly guard in place. So the stitching will go the whole length, but I'm going to back tack over where the teeth are, and then I can trim off the bottom of the zip so that I don't have all this in my way when I'm wearing it. I'll probably back tack over the teeth a little bit further down as well, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so yeah, we are nearly there, guys. I'm nearly finished mending 2 more garments. Okay, so that was actually pretty quick. So I'm just going to trim this off. I'm going to trim it slightly shorter than the lining. Normal pair of scissors. Yes, I am using my fabric scissors. Probably should get another pair of scissors for these sorts of jobs, but hey, you can always sharpen scissors. And I don't usually use them for anything other than fabric. So yeah, so now I just need to trim off my threads, and we can find out how these fit. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. I can confirm that the skirt does fit well enough to enter into circulation. Can't quite get the zip done all the way up. It's about 5mm short, but as the weather warms up, I'll be getting a bit more active, so that's not a problem because those 5mm will easily come back. The trousers, on the other hand, are a smaller size than the skirt, so I always use a little bit of a risk that I won't be able to wear them at the moment. But that's fine. They do have a couple of inches, about 2.5 inches, I think, should do it to make them fit. They do have an extension space in the seam allowance at the back, for fit that's in the pattern, so I might be able to let them out part of the way, if not all of the way, there, and then add a panel to the waistband to complete the adjustment of the fit. But we'll see if I get to that, because to be fair, my body shape changes throughout the year anyway. I get much more active in the warmer weather, so I end up wearing smaller clothes at that time of the year, and they're not thick corduroy trousers, they are thin needle cord, so they are more sort of spring, summer, autumn trousers anyway. So the fact that I can't get into them just yet is not a massive issue. It's a bit of a disappointment because I do love them, but I might just have to make another pair in a larger size. Then I can just swap them out when weather dictates. Oh, that's an idea. So yeah, so the zips are replaced. It was actually not as difficult as I thought it might be. Zips are quite intimidating anyway. I've never replaced zips before, but deciding to do a video on it was certainly motivating enough to get it done. So yeah, so they're done. They are wearable, or at least they will be as my size and shape changes throughout the year. So yeah, so I'm pretty pleased with that all in all. And that's all I have to say really. It's done. Do a mend and all that. So obviously do the stuff down there that all the YouTubers tell you. Give us a thumbs up if you're planning on doing some repairs yourself, and let me know what they are. I aim to put a video up every weekend, Friday, Saturday or Sunday. It's usually a Saturday, but sometimes it's a Friday or a Sunday. This week it's most likely to be a Sunday because it's already 20 to 3 on Saturday. Doesn't normally take me this long to do a video, but the zips were daunting me, so it took me a while. So I need to get this edited and so on, and that takes a bit of time. So it's probably going to be Sunday this week, but usually it's a Saturday, definitely a weekend, and I don't often miss a week. So yeah, I look forward to seeing my next video. Can't think off the top of my head what it is. It might be bead weaving. Yeah, I think I was planning on doing a bead weaving video next week, or is it the podcast roundup of the month? What day are we on? It's one or the other of those two. So I'll be surprised next week. Go, hey, there's a video from Ewe Sew You. Let's go watch it and find out what it is she managed to ramble about this week. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.